Hi, I'm Dan, and along with my brother and business partner Lloyd, I'm the co-host of the Business Anchors podcast. Today we're discussing the wonderful world of employment, which is slightly awkward for me as my first job didn't go that well.
I'm at home having breakfast. He comes in the door in tears. I was like, oh my God, it's only his first day. What's happened? I can't find 12 Hadlow Drive.
Moving swiftly on. Now, I'm not an expert in employment, but thankfully Lloyd has hired hundreds of people in his previous job role, and he really does know what he's doing.
I once hired a guy accidentally.
How do you do that?
How do you do that? You have hundreds of it wasn't hundreds of jobs to fill each year, sorry. Hundreds of people you're interviewing.
Yeah.
Thousands of applicants, and sometimes they have similar names. And sometimes you interview two people and then you hire the one that was rubbish and you didn't want to hire. And then they turn up on their first day and you think, he doesn't look like the one I wanted to hire.
Maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about. Come on, Lloyd, pull it back by sharing something useful. I don't know, tell us reasons why someone who looks great for a job on paper may not actually get the job.
You don't know. Sometimes, there's roles we've hired for, like, it could be like, video editor. But actually, we're thinking it'd be great if they had some graphic design skills. But that's not anywhere written down.
Yeah.
So actually, we get a video editor that comes along and is a really good graphic designer as well. And for our business at that point, they're a great fit.
That point, yeah.
It doesn't mean you weren't a great video editor, you haven't interviewed well, but you weren't the perfect fit right now.
Riveting stuff, Lloyd. Now, if you wanted your dream job at, let's say, Facebook, and you wanted to stand out in your application and interview, what could you do? My spider senses are tingling. I feel like someone is about to share some highly valuable practical advice. I'd even try and reach out to a much smaller, it could be a social media marketing tool or application, or even a much smaller platform, and try and even be an intern, even like for free, or try and get some experience. Because going to that job with Facebook, you can say, I'm really passionate about the social media space. I went and interned at this social media app company and I've got some really good experience there. That's the kind of thing that shows that you're... Yeah. Otherwise you're just saying, oh yeah, I'd love to work for you, I've got good skills. It's like, you sound like every other person trying to get the job. God, brilliant advice passed, Dan. And I know you and Lloyd have so many more valuable insights and ridiculous stories to share around employment in this episode, because I was there when you recorded it. Funny that. Here's episode 39 of the Business Anchors podcast.
We're just a couple of business anchors. Welcome to the Business Anchors podcast. This jingle is slightly too long. This jingle is slightly too long.
How can you get your dream job?
Now that is a question, isn't it?
That is a question.
That is a question that I do not have the answer to.
Great podcast.
Thanks for listening. That is what we're going to be discussing, really, isn't it? It's a
big one to crack, isn't it, that question?
Yeah. And we're also talking about hiring and firing and all that stuff you have to deal with when you're in the position of running a business or managing a business or owning a business.
Why are we talking about this, Lloyd?
What got us thinking about the subject is because we're currently hiring, so we're talking about a lot of stuff.
Nice segue.
And suddenly thought, we should probably talk about this on the podcast. This is interesting. We're hiring here at Knowlton currently, so just in case any listeners are local to Kent and interested, we've got 4 roles. We've got a videographer.
He can't speak again.
Oh, no. Videographer / assistant producer, a video editor, a marketing and production assistant, and a TikTok content creator in the skincare realm.
Ooh.
And that's why we started thinking about, dream job. Because really, being like a TikTok content, well, it's not just TikTok, it's social media in general, but it would be heavily focused on TikTok. And we thought, that is like, for a lot of people, that's a dream
job. Getting
job.
paid to make TikTok videos all day, I'd do that.
I mean, just so you know, if you're thinking of applying, there's more involved than just that.
Yeah, definitely a lot more involved.
Yeah. But yeah, that is a dream job for
someone. Can I just say something?
Sure.
This is what I like about us coming up with topics for this podcast, because it's highly relevant to what's going on in our business and what we can learn from at the time. And I think that makes it fun to talk about.
Yeah, I guess we've been talking about this hiring process and
a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Which, when we're talking about stuff, and we kind of think, this is interesting as a business owner.
Yeah, we try and
maybe some of the anchors listening.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. I got 2 messages. People don't know this. You know the anchor in front of the anchors on the logo?
Yes.
I think most people listening now won't know that it's a play on words. Because multiple people commented saying, that anchor looks like a W. And if you think about it...
The whole part of the reason we named it the Business Anchors, with a W in front of the anchors, lol, was us taking the mickey out of ourselves, really. It's kind of like, well, in my eyes, it's like we're all just trying to work out what we're doing in this world of business.
Yeah.
We're all business anchors. And it's weird that suddenly people are realising that.
Yeah, a year in.
Yeah.
What was your first job?
Do
you remember what your first job was?
Well, I think it would have been the paper round up at All Days, it was called, until Co-op bought it.
I remember
when I was
that.
13. 12 quid a week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Get up every day.
Yeah, that's just over £2 a day. No, just under £2 a day, sorry.
Well, that's more than me. I started on £8 because I did a half round at...
I remember getting you the job. Obviously, they were impressed with me, impressed with the older brother. And do you remember what happened on your first day, Dan?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember? Should we tell the listeners?
Go on then.
Yeah, Dan's first day of a job ever.
How old was I? I must have been about 13.
13, yeah. So, I mean, too old to be doing this, really. I got in the job, got this half round, 8 quid a week, so just over £1 a day. He delivered like his 7 out of the 8 papers he had to do or something on the first day. I'm at home having breakfast. He comes in the door in tears. I was like, oh my God, it's only his first day. What's happened? I can't find 12 Hadlow Drive. So Dan took his job very seriously and he couldn't find an address.
No, can I just caveat that? It was a house that wasn't really on the road. It was like on the corner. And I thought I was going to get fired because I didn't give the paper.
It's definitely on the road.
Was it on the road?
It's just the first house on that road.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you mean all of your other papers were on the same road?
Yeah. And this one...
Yeah, I mean, this was pretty complicated, guys. So all of his papers were on the same road, except one was on a turn-off. And then suddenly his mind was blown that there's more than one road in the world.
But then you were a good brother and you came and took me to the house, didn't
I said, yeah, come on, calm down. I'll show you where 12 Hadlow Drive is. It's literally 2 minutes from our own house. It improved from there. We had a deadline day transfer over to the local newsagents from Co-op. They poached us because they heard how good we were later on. But yeah, that was
there was a lady that ran it with a pug that sounded like it
couldn't breathe. Yeah. I also did another job, which it may have been before my paper round. I can't remember. Have you heard of divoting?
Is that golf where you fill in the divots?
Yeah. So this is a weird job that I didn't know existed until I did it over a couple of Easters or summers, I think. So basically, the local golf club, just hires a load of kids to walk around the course and throw mud in holes and then put the mud down.
Nice.
So just literally walking around with a bucket of mud for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Just filling in the golfers' divots so that was interesting.
Nice.
That was... Yeah. Do you have any other weird jobs?
So I had paper round. Then I did washing up at Knowlton Golf Club. I remember I knew these girls that worked there.
Why don't you do it in our office then?
I do. I knew these girls that worked there, and I remember asking them if I needed to wear a suit to the job interview, and they laughed at me.
It's hard though, isn't it, with job interviews?
It's a golf club, and I thought they're going to judge me, and they just literally pissed themselves laughing when I said, should I wear a suit?
No, I don't think that's outrageous though. I think, it's hard to make that judgment.
I also was an administrator at a company, I'm not going to mention actually, but I remember having to sort through all these files and stuff, and I remember just falling asleep some days in this empty house full of files.
Oh, did you cry at all?
No crying on that one.
Talking about surrounded by files, I think probably I was going to say worst. It wasn't really bad, but it's just boring. I did a whole summer, I think 7 or 8 weeks of so my mate did this job for a few weeks and was like, oh, they've said if I can find someone, I'm going to do someone else, but do you want the job? I was like, yeah, okay, full time. Oh yeah, great. And then I got to this deaf school and they took me into the basement,
right,
and on my first day, and it was this basement and all the walls were filled with shelves with folders in this whole massive basement. Like, oh wow, okay. And they said, right, what you need to do is shred these files.
Oh no!
And
really?
It's like they're confidential information. So for over the previous years now, we just need to shred them. There's just a chair in the middle of the room, a shredder, and then I said, okay, which files do I need to shred? And they just looked around and went, all of them. And so for like 7 or 8 weeks, I was
That is awful.
And in the end, after about 3 days, I said to them, the shredder overheats after about half an hour. Then I have to have a half an hour break to let it cool down. So I requested to have more shredders. In the end, I had 3 shredders. So I'd be doing 2 hands, folders into these shredders. I had a good system going. Then like, the left one would overheat, so I'd switch.
You know, they say you learn things from different jobs. What kind of skills did you gain from that?
I learned how to be extremely efficient.
That's actually good. Yeah.
So I knew exactly when they were overheating. I knew exactly the amount of pages that I could shred without it overheating.
How many
too
was
quickly.
it, or what kind of thickness?
23.5. I don't remember now. But yeah, the highlight of my day then, one of the deaf members of staff would just come down. We struggled to communicate because I didn't know sign language and she couldn't talk.
Yeah.
But she just used to come down, shake a bottle of Fanta, and I'd give her the thumbs up, and she'd give me a bottle of Fanta.
That's amazing.
I assume she worked there. I just knew of her as Fanta Lady.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was nice.
So take it on the other side in terms of hiring, and this is all about trying to help people get their dream job as well as talking about hiring stuff. What gives you the right to give advice on hiring? What qualifies you to give any kind of advice, Lloyd?
Well, I'm a host of the Business Anchors podcast.
Yep.
So I can just say anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's such a good podcast.
You have also hired people, Lloyd, haven't you?
Yes. I have hired hundreds of people in previous life. My previous job when I used to work for the language school, and we used to have schools all around the country. A big part of my role there every year, because it was very much temporary. It was like hiring people for 2 months of the year, and then that job would go. So it's very rare we had people back, because that's fine jobs for the other 10 months, surprisingly.
Yeah.
So I had to hire new sets of people for all these schools around the UK.
You must, like, before we get into the actual useful stuff, you must have some stories of interesting or funny things that have happened whilst hiring.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I have to say, I do think I'm good at recruitment and getting good people the jobs and interviewing stuff because I've done it so much. However, I have been shit sometimes.
Really?
So, for example, I once hired a guy accidentally.
How do you do that? You have hundreds of job. No, it wasn't hundreds of jobs to fill each year. Sorry, hundreds of people you're interviewing. Yeah.
Thousands of applicants, and sometimes they have similar names. And sometimes you interview 2 people, and then you hire the one that was rubbish and you didn't want to hire. And then they turn up on their first day, and you think, he doesn't look like the one I wanted to hire. But the funny story with that is, I mean, I got away with it, but obviously I'm thinking like, the first day I was like, oh God, I'm responsible for this guy. And he's someone I put on the no list. And then I've obviously sent him a job offer and gone through the whole process.
You can't go back on that, can you?
So I just sort of saw him, oh, great to see you. And I'm thinking, oh no. But the good thing about that, he was one of the best people I ever hired.
Really?
Yeah.
That just goes to show.
So it just goes to show, you shouldn't listen to my advice.
Yeah.
He was supposed to go in the no pile. And, you know, if there's any staff here listening to this podcast, just let you know, I meant to hire all of you. So there's no surprises there.
There was one more quick story, the funny thing that you mentioned of when someone turned up to the interview for another company and
someone turned up.
They didn't quite know what was going on.
Oh, that was for this business.
Yeah.
That was hiring in the last year. Obviously, I will never give out any confidential details, but an anonymous person just, when I asked a couple of questions, he said, by the way, what's this for again? And I was kind of like, I think we know that this isn't going to end in a job offer.
What's this for again?
What's this for again? I was like, oh, it's a job. You know, he said, oh, right. I don't think I'm really available for that kind of work. Like, interesting that you applied for the job, accepted, said you wanted the interview. Yeah. So it's
strange.
I think it is hard. Well, both on the people hiring and people looking for jobs. There's so many applications and so many jobs, and, you know, people trying to get jobs are applying for loads. So it is, and when you're hiring, you're dealing with loads of people. So it is hard to remember everything. But obviously,
Yeah.
you're never going to get a job if you say like, "What even is this?"
Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah.
just make sure you know what you're interviewing or being interviewed for.
Do you think you're good at interviews?
I think I am good. I don't think I'm the best interviewer. Oh,
no,
you
I mean
being
being interviewed. Sorry, going for a job.
If
I was here saying, Lloyd, what?
I think I would be now.
Yeah.
Now that it's useless and I'll never have another interview.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was good previously. No.
Yeah.
I think I went too far on the. You know, when people sometimes ask, like, "What's your biggest weakness?"
Oh, and you say,
I think I'm the sort.
I'm too motivated.
Yeah, I think I'd be the sort of guy. My biggest weakness is probably that I care too much. You know, sometimes I should be going home at the end of the day, but I care too much about projects and I will stay forever.
Thing is, I can totally resonate with that because at uni, I did a sandwich degree where you do 2 years
In Subway.
Yeah, 2 years meatball marinara.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
2 years, not in Subway, 2 years at uni, 1 year in a work placement, then 1 year. And I interviewed for like 12 or 15 roles and I didn't get any. And I remember I was totally, my whole preparation was just trying to find what's the best answer to the question. And it was obviously, at the time I wasn't very self-aware, and I'd go there and they'd ask a question, like a textbook question, and I'd say something that I read on Google.
Right.
Like, how do you answer your biggest weakness? How do you answer? And obviously they could tell, like we could tell if someone was just saying stuff that they thought was the right answer now. And but I remember coming out of an interview with Bosch and thinking, I've totally got this job.
Really?
Absolutely smashed it. And then just, no.
Really?
So I really wasn't self-aware, obviously.
I think it is so hard in interviews though, Dan, to know. Because you
A
have...
lot of it is if they like you as well.
Yeah, you have no idea who else they're talking to, what the sort of things they're looking for. Sorry about that. And
Because you can still be good, but just not quite the right fit.
Exactly.
That's what I tell myself anyway.
For certain roles, it might be, oh God, why is my voice like this?
I don't know. It's not good for a podcast, is it?
But it could be a new experience, a new listening experience.
Have a drink.
My co-host, Boyd Bolton. Hello, I'm back. You don't know, sometimes, there's roles we've hired for, like, it could be like, oh, video editor. But actually, we're thinking it'd be great if they had some graphic design skills. But that's not anywhere written down.
Yeah.
So actually, we get a video editor that comes along and is a really good graphic designer as well. And for our business at that point, they're a great fit.
That point, yeah.
It doesn't mean you weren't a great video editor. You haven't interviewed well, but you weren't the perfect fit right now. So it's hard because it's not necessarily you've done anything wrong.
Yeah. I think I'd be quite good now in an interview. Now I've lived a bit and sort of, I think I would do literally the opposite of what I did when I interviewed before. I'd try and answer honestly. And if there was any questions that I didn't know, or I wouldn't try and answer them, and I just say, I can't really think. I don't know that.
I think that's the main thing that would make me interview better now. I wouldn't
100%
try and
honest.
pretend to have the answer all the time. I'd be open to say, do you know what? That's something I haven't had much experience of. But how I'd probably find out would be do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Whereas I think when you feel under pressure and you're being interviewed, you
I've
just
done it
try
once.
and give them, in my experience, and obviously because you haven't got experience of it.
It just sounds like you're fumbling an answer.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I have got another. I forgot to mention earlier another nightmare answer to a question when I was interviewing before in my previous
As
job.
in when you were interviewing someone.
Yeah, I used to do scenario questions to kind of, I put scenario in front of them to make them, this could be a real thing that's going to happen to them. Let's see how they react when they haven't got time to prepare or they don't know. So it used to be, because it was for a school and they used to do these coach trips to busy cities like London or Oxford or Brighton or whatever.
Yeah.
Used to say, you set a meeting point for all the kids to come back after they've had some free time to get some food or whatever, and one of the kids doesn't come back, and you can't contact them.
What do you do?
What do you do?
I'll be interested to know the right answer.
Yeah, and obviously it's quite hard to answer that, especially if it's just thrown at you and you haven't done it before.
Oh, a child's missing.
But
basically.
most people just at least use some logic. But there was one guy that just went. Probably just panic loads.
joking.
He said, God, that'd be so rubbish, wouldn't it? I don't know. I have no idea what I'd do. I'd just panic, probably.
No, that's too honest.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, I mean, in reality, don't get me wrong, in your head you probably would be thinking,
modes.
oh shit, like what do I do in this scenario? But obviously in an interview, just kind of very honest. Oh my God, just panic so much. And I was like, okay.
So what is the right answer then? What's like the ideal answer to that? Is that about
So it's interestingly because some people went the other way, and this is also a negative in my eyes. Quite an often, a frequent answer would be, "Well, I'd immediately call the police."
Yeah,
and you may think, "Oh, great," but actually,
that's not necessary at that point.
That's overkill. So a good answer for that would be using logic. So it's kind of like that. All this, there's loads of this kid's friends here.
So call them.
So you no, but they're here.
Yeah.
You go up to them and say, "Do you know where Jimmy is?"
Yeah.
And
he's just in the
99
chocolate
times out of 100, they go,
in the M&M
"Yeah, he's
store."
over the road there,"
Yeah.
and it's problem solved. That's why calling the police immediately didn't. So it's kind of using logic like that. Ask your friends. Usually that gets the answer. If not, you'll find his emergency contact, his mobile number. Let's give him a call and see where he is. Speak to his teacher he was last with. And then obviously if it's like an hour and this kid's just missing in London, then you can take it more seriously. But yeah, so that's it was interesting because the
honesty.
The honest thing of just panic. Yeah.
What about in terms of trying to give some advice of actually getting your dream job? So putting yourself in the shoes of, say we weren't running Knowlton and you actually wanted your dream job.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, is there anything? What approach would you take? Because I don't think a standard just send your CV in and a cover letter. I don't think that would, necessarily be the best approach.
No, I agree, but then, especially in the marketing world, there's so many people doing these quirky things. I've sent a balloon through your window, and unfortunately, I didn't tell you, so you thought it was a terrorist threat, so you evacuated your building.
There was the ones in like Social Chain where someone got an owl like out of Harry Potter with a thing attached to his leg and flew it in the office. Yeah, it's like that'd be well annoying.
It certainly gets. I think
there's a pigeon.
Well done for getting the attention, but
the creativity.
I do think if you're getting the attention with the application, but actually you don't have the skills, or showing,
you could go in there and just shout, couldn't you, and get attention.
Exactly.
I'm really good for the job.
You could go in with a gun and threaten people to let you in. and go, "I've just done this and been creative to get your attention with job application," and it's like definitely not going to hire you. So I actually think from hiring a lot of people previously, what I mostly look at is not necessarily showing people have got loads of experience in stuff and that kind of thing, but them demonstrating somehow that they've just got something. I don't know. It sounds stupid, but it could be like, I volunteered for 3 weeks at this thing because I'm passionate about this. Yeah. Or like, I started my own YouTube channel about Lego just because I love Lego and I'm really passionate about it. It's like, you've put effort into this thing in your own time, and you've had to use these skills. And I think I think people think in a lot of roles, I haven't got this experience. So, but showing like even in a similar area, like, I've done this thing in my own time and put effort towards it and achieved this. I think I
guess that kind of shows you that when someone's doing something they enjoy, they put effort into it off their own back. Yeah, and that's kind of what you want for someone working for you, don't you?
Yeah. So I think, I know it sounds stupid, it's very vague because you could do anything, but there's so many applications that we have to go through when we're hiring. Yeah. It's like, if anyone's got anything a bit different,
it makes them stand out.
I actually was a football coach when I was 16, and last year I ran my own football coaching over the summer holidays. We only had 15 kids, but I organised it, I marketed it, and things like that just shows, okay, you've got something about you that you can work stuff out. Yeah. I think that's the other thing, like when I'm interviewing people, it's that thing of not just pretending you know the answer to everything, not pretending you know everything, showing that you're willing to learn or go through a process to work that out.
I'd even, like, if I had a dream job at a certain company, let's say it was Facebook or something, I'd even try and reach out to a much smaller it could be a social media marketing tool or application or even a much smaller platform, and try and even be an intern, even like for free, or try and get some experience. Because going to that job with Facebook, you can say, I'm really passionate about the social media space. I went and interned at this social media app company and I've got some really good experience there. That's the kind of thing that shows that you're...
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just saying, oh, yeah, I'd love to work for you. I've got good skills. It's like you sound like every other person trying to get the job.
So. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes that's not doable for people. If people have responsibilities and stuff, you can't work for free.
You could do a couple of hours on a Saturday.
Well, I'm saying if you've got children, things that's not necessarily
get
achievable.
Get a babysitter.
if you can't afford, no.
Okay.
But honestly, Dan, it's not achievable for everyone to do things for free. But you can,
but if it is,
you're
that's
saying,
good advice.
In the evening, you could be doing your own thing for a couple of hours.
Yeah. I think, like you said, just showing some initiative that you're doing things, extracurricular activity. You know, like when you're at school and it's like, what do you do with extracurricular? Oh, I once volunteered.
Because I think, like you said, I've done this internship and it was unpaid, but I learned this stuff. Or on the other side, I think it's just as impressive. I'm a single parent, 2 kids, and I've been working on this designing this website for my own business for a couple of hours in the evening. Sometimes it's like, you've got loads on your plate and you're still doing that. That's impressive.
Yeah, I think that's one part. That's the kind of application of getting noticed to get the interview for your dream job. But then when you're actually in that interview, just like we said, I think do the opposite of what I used to do and try and answer everything right. And actually, it's difficult because when you're under pressure, it's more stressful and it's difficult to be yourself 100%. I think I remember in job interviews, I had very much I was sweating and sort of thought, oh, what's the right answer for this?
But I do think it's, if you don't know the answer, show you're willing to learn the answer, or show some logical thing of, I don't actually know that, but what I'd probably do is this, and this.
To try and figure that out?
Yeah, and if I was working for you guys, I'd really like the opportunity to try and learn that and spend some time working that out. I think that's, like you said, it's easy. When you've had lots of interviews and then you look back in hindsight, it's easy to say that. But
when you're actually people staring at you.
I didn't do that in any interviews I've ever had.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why it's good advice for people. Like now we're hiring people and have hired lots of people.
What do you look for? Like, say we know we're hiring for 4 roles now. What would you or we be looking for that would stand out? Is it the stuff you mentioned, like extra passion for doing things out? Is there anything else that you think makes someone like really stand out?
Being a psychopath?
Yeah, not being Barney's just mentioned not being a psychopath. I mean, that's not an ideal question to ask, but I did ask him that in an interview.
Yes, you did.
He seemed too good to be true.
Yeah.
Barney, am I allowed to talk about this?
I don't care.
Okay, cool. Because that would be confidential information to talk about Barney's interview. Yeah, he seemed very good, and I was thinking, he must be hiding something. This is exactly the person we need. I was like, are you a psychopath? And surprisingly, he said no, even though he was. Cheers, Barney.
I don't think I actually answered you.
For me, there's a few key things that need to stand out. One, if they show that they've taken any time to actually understand our company, like the amount of time, and I, again, completely didn't do any of this when I interviewed, actually not just looking at a company's about page and regurgitating that, but looking at their social media accounts, looking at their Instagram stories to see what's going on behind the business, to say, if people came in and said, I saw that you shoot a podcast and I've been listening to the Business Anchors podcast, just that tiny bit of information, if they reference something as a small element of the interview to show that they've actually spent the time to know the company, that's one thing. But obviously there's a huge, they need to actually be good at the job. They need to show that they can have the skills to do it. But I think that shows
regarding that, I do think, having interviewed a lot of people, there are 3 levels of understanding of the company. So there's people who don't know at all, just like, you're a marketing agency, I'm interested in marketing. There's the second level that you said about where people
read the about page,
memorize exactly the paragraph on our about page of what we are.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you're a marketing agency that started in 2016, and then it's like, okay, they've made an effort to read it, but they've learnt a paragraph on our website, if you know what I mean. They haven't got a deeper understanding. And then, like you said, there's people that you can tell have spent a decent amount of time. Like, I listened to one of your podcast episodes recently on this. I found it really interesting. You said this. Also, I saw that you work with this client. I've bought a couple of their products. That's really cool. You've done that. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like a third level that like, second level, you've memorized the paragraph, so that's definitely better than nothing. You're trying to show that I have read something at least, but that third level is a completely separate thing. And I think that's the general thing I would say about this. There's not anything in particular that you have to hit in the interview other than showing that your attitude to learn and to do a good job and stuff. If you've listened to a whole podcast episode and you've looked through every page on our website and you've actually thought about some things you've seen on our website, that shows your attitude to things in life of, I'm going to give this some time and attention to make sure I try and do a good job. And I think that is the main thing of what I look for in anyone, other than obviously there's a minimum skill level to do certain things.
I also think in terms of having examples to back up what you're saying. So and this is just my thoughts, I don't know what you think, Lloyd, but if we're saying, oh, as the video editor, you need to be doing X, Y, Z, tell us your experience in that. And rather than just saying, yeah, I've used it before and I can do it, actually saying I used it before in this scenario, here's what I did, and having those. And this is where that extracurricular activity comes in.
Yeah.
Because then you can say, oh, I volunteered at this football coaching thing, or I was an intern for 1 hour a week at this place and I learn X, Y, Z. And that's where, that's more impressive than just saying, yes, I can do it. Having that.
I agree completely. And
examples
saying,
to back up.
Having examples like that at a very low level, to me, is more impressive than saying you can do something at a high level.
Yes.
Saying, oh yeah, I ran this football coaching thing when I was 19, and I found actually I used Facebook to get to advertise it and just put posts
on a basic level.
On a basic level, and that got much more than the leaflets I sent out.
Rather than saying I'm a Facebook expert.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking about it.
I also think that just to caveat all this, obviously there are some roles and in some industries there are very specific things you need to do in that process to get hired. There are specific qualifications you have to have. There are experience that almost every employer will make sure they won't hire anyone without it. But I think this is good kind of general advice for.
I guess like anything, it's. We only give advice based on our experience. So everything we say, take with a pinch of salt, because there's someone else who's done it in a different way. And
I've hired hundreds of people. Someone else has hired thousands of people.
I've hired no one.
Yeah. Well, you've hired people.
Actually, yeah, we have hired. Yeah.
You've been part of the process.
Yeah,
then.
I have. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, if we ever hire anyone bad, you'll be responsible for that.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Thanks.
That's okay.
So anything else on hiring that you wanted to talk about, or anything?
Just a reminder that we got those jobs available, really. If you're and obviously business anchors, if you're not aware and you want to find those jobs, our business is called Knowlton, Knowlton, and they're
on LinkedIn and on
LinkedIn and Indeed. Currently, you can apply. So if you're interested in
work
any
with
of
us
those roles, and if you're good, and it would imagine now someone could listen to this episode. Basically use it as a guide on how to
get hired, and then we hire them.
Oh god, that's going to be hard.
Yeah, they do.
All the interviews are perfect, and I'm like, hang on, what's going on here?
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't spoken about the more awkward side of the hiring and firing, which is firing. But was that a bit too negative for today? Maybe we'll do another episode on that kind of negative side of dealing with people. Yeah. Not performing and all that horrible stuff.
Yeah, let's keep this one positive.
Yeah, it's much nicer talking about hiring. So listeners, if you don't listen to the next one and give us a review, there will be a formal disciplinary. But thank you for listening, guys.
Thanks.
And join us next week where we're talking about
how we made hundreds of thousands from a tiny podcast audience.
Well, you're not tiny audience, but relatively.
It's a hooky title, Lloyd. Give me a break.
Well, I'm just impressed that you actually knew what we were doing.
Thanks.
So well done.
Bye.